I am falling in love with this show. I'm not kidding. And I never would have expected that a love interest of the main character would become my favorite character of this entire show. And really, I can't honestly believe that there are so many bad reviews for it, and that the show currently sits at a 6 out of 10 on IMDb. This was absolutely my favorite episode of the series so far, and it's all because of storytelling, parallel themes, and metaphors. Really, you have to stay with me here. There's way more to this episode than immediately meets the eye. Hi fellow Disney Plus watchers, this is Thoughts After a Disney Plus Watch, where we review everything new Disney Plus coming out, and I'm glad you're watching. This is the channel that's specifically about movies, shows, and all that's Disney Plus original stuff. So just a fair warning here before we start, I do want to discuss spoilers to really do this episode justice, so you can press that watch later button if you haven't seen it yet. Still here? Let's go for it. This episode had two running storylines. The first and most central one is of course Scott and Hooch assigned to protect this judge that is working on a controversial case. This judge needs protection and Scott and Hooch are the perfect ones to be there for him. Unfortunately for Scott, Jessica is on desk duty, and that is why Scott joins forces with Xavier, the guy at the office whom he doesn't understand and is the last one Scott feels like connecting with. I mean, Scott knew Jessica was probably not even allowed to come with him because of her pregnancy, and he says he asked everybody in the office. So Jessica asks, everybody? And she looks at Xavier. No, Scott didn't ask him yet. So he even asks the no chance cause she's pregnant work partner before Xavier. That's how much he didn't want to deal with Xavier. But Xavier is not the only challenge Scott has to face. This character he has to protect, Judge Nelson, is actually really cranky and mean and also demands a lot of Scott's attention. So Scott has to deal with the last partner in crime he desires and the worst, meanest guy in the world he has to help. That's why it was kinda sweet that at one point Scott admits to Erica, you know, for once, Hooch has been great. Totally focused. This episode tweaks the formula just a little bit. Scott's big hustle is not Hooch, but other people around him. He's gotta deal with other stuff. It's for once not all about Hooch, and I think that is important for this show to just shift the focus a little bit here and there. The interesting thing about the episode, and one of the reasons I love it so much, is that Scott's story and Laura's story have a lot in common, and this episode, having these two stories running simultaneously, really works because of that. Both plot threads are about dealing with an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend and the struggle to keep working towards the goal professionally. Both Laura and Scott are really testing their patience. Laura wants the information on the files from her father's case, but has to deal with her son's father constantly coming up with plans to distract her from that. Pizza night, riding the BMX, all that. Scott, well, he's also pretty distracted during this episode because we see him have at least some feelings for his ex-girlfriend Brooke, who is now the one he wants to impress, because every week Scott wants to impress someone, right? And because of that, he has to make sure to remain professional. And Hooch was kind of a metaphor for staying focused and not losing sight of the goal. I really like this returning theme where the thing Hooch has to learn, in this case staying focused, not being distracted, is also the lesson for Scott to overcome, in his own way. And I also did like the element that Xavier throws in. Sometimes having a goal also means making room for stuff that might seem inconsequential but could become more important later on. It's a holistic philosophy, as he calls it, and I do think this philosophy is vital, especially for Scott. So there's two sides to this story. For one, Scott has the challenge to stay professional, and that professionalism is both being tested by the cranky judge, pushing all Scott's buttons, as well as Xavier and his weird holistic wisdoms. And for two, Scott has the challenge to accept some things that cross his path, to trust the outcome, and to take into account that some things aren't what they seem, and that it will come into play later. Kind of like the formula of the show. Laura is kind of going through the same thing. It's not about professionalism per se, but she does have to balance being the vegetable mom, the mom that always says no, and the mom that can have fun for a while and just having some patience. Trusting the outcome, take into account that some things will turn out in the end. Two stories about patience and not losing sight of the main goal at the same time. You know what I'm getting at? You know why I so freaking love the writing of this show? The acting work within this episode was really entertaining. It's all about the small moments. Erica reacting with, yeah, great idea, just a little rest, and she trying to hide her side stitch after Scott asks her if she'd like a little break. I laughed. Such a great detail. And while we're talking about this scene, a little bit later we see Erica explain to Scott that dogs always pay attention to what their owners are paying attention to. And then we see Angel staring at Scott. Damn, my heart melted. That's great storytelling. And Erica trying to cover up that reveal, so sweet. I absolutely adore this idea of the dogs slowly revealing and building the relationship between these two, Erica and Scott. Hooch was very frequently used as a metaphor for something Erica was feeling for Scott past couple of weeks, and now this scene where her dog Angel reveals that she's got an eye on Scott. I love the writing of this show for these characters. I can't tell you too often how much I'm enjoying it. There's a lot to say about episode 4, of Turner and Hooch, but let's pause for a second and talk about that ending. That ending. Are you kidding me? Brooke asking Scott out for dinner sometime, walking away, leaving Scott a bit confused and alone with his feelings, but Hooch still looking at the direction Erica went in, harking back to what she said about dogs paying attention to what their owners, consciously or subconsciously, are paying attention to. Are you freaking kidding me? I have goosebumps just talking about this ending. And Jessica eating popcorn and enjoying the love triangle entertainment like all of us watching. It was priceless. Overall, it was delightful, full of good humor, good acting. Erica's now my favorite character. The story is just so well written. Hooch is once again functioning as a metaphor and as someone who brings Scott and Erica together eventually. I loved pretty much everything about it, except for Laura's son hugging mommy at the end and just randomly saying, "I like vegetables, mom." That was weird and not really believable in my opinion. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, what did you think of this episode? Be sure to let me know in the comment section. Don't forget, if you enjoy the idea of discussing Disney Plus content with us, that red button looks familiar, right? And if you're interested in thoughts on previous episodes, it's all in the description or you can browse the channel page. Did you like this video? Then be sure to consider giving that a click. Thanks. My thoughts on the first episode of Marvel's What If is coming up very soon. Might be tomorrow. I'm sorry about that. There's a lot to cover. For now, have a wonderful day and see ya.